What's up guys, Manime here, and today I want to talk about an anime that I've just recently fell in love with, and that anime is All Out. I have to admit, I don't really watch many sports anime, but now that I've seen All Out, I'm pretty sure this is going to be my eventual gateway drug into Kuro no Basket in Haikyuu. But today, I really want to focus on this show and its brilliant use of the KISS philosophy. For those of you who don't know, it stands for Keep It Simple Stupid. This is Manime Matt, and this is the perfect simplicity of All Out. So let's talk art. Now, All Out is far from one of the prettiest anime out there, but it has a very distinctive art style, particularly in the character designs. I have to admit, this is something I'm becoming more fond of because a lot of anime seem to be able to clone this very pretty art style, but never manage to make it their own. All Out definitely doesn't appear as pretty as most of the other shows this season, but it definitely manages to separate itself, which personally I think is the more important task. This blocky and seemingly heavy-handed art style really seems to match the narrative being told. The thick outlines are representative of the major themes of hard work that is heavily pushed throughout the show, while the blocky, almost child-esque character designs let us know that the show is very lighthearted. There are well-defined lessons in this show, but they never are so harsh to pull you completely out of the lighthearted nature of this show. Speaking of which, let's talk about some of the major themes of this show. Now, the first one is very obvious, and that is hard work. Each of the characters seem to be incredibly driven to make it to Hanazo, or i.e. their finals. Most of the characters push themselves to pretty extreme amounts, and at first it seems as though there isn't much hope. We often see flashbacks to last year's seniors who very clearly didn't push the team very hard, leading them to their infamous losing streak. The show teaches us that even if you're constantly working hard physically, it doesn't mean you're going to win. You must also immerse yourself in strategy and work hard mentally. Another major theme of this show is teamwork. Once again, this theme is pushed pretty hard. Generally, all it takes is one player on the field who's a little off kilter in order to throw a game. They push this team a little harder in a particular game when they play against a team that has basically an all-star player. He's infinitely better than any single player on Jinko, or his own team at that. Yet he plays selfishly and tries to win the game by himself, which leads to their eventual defeat by Jinko. And that's really it. There are some small lessons sprinkled in the rest of the show, some of which is being born with talent versus people who are not born with it, the fact that some people cannot handle hardcore training, and some problems with money and how exterior forces can hurt your individual play. These lessons can get pretty serious at times, but once again, they never end up lasting for too incredibly long, and generally they bring you back into the lighthearted mood again, but just with a slightly different way of thinking. So let's talk about the cast. There are about 8 to 12 main characters in this anime, and they all have about the same amount of screen time. Each character looks very different visually, and they have pre-built relationships with other characters on the team. Each one eventually gets what's basically their own episode, where we get to understand them better as characters. We see them build relationships that seem genuine, and we learn to like just about every character on the team. Now granted, there is some hardcore ship bait in this freaking anime. I'm thinking this is pretty normal for most sports anime. Luckily they don't push it too hard, but there are some episodes that they do get a little bit too close for comfort on that not so ambiguous line. The other teams in the show are also presented in a fairly good manner. Most teams have their own play styles and techniques. As a matter of fact, one of the teams is all about playing the game dirty or low-browed. It's great to see Jinko learn from these different teams and evolve. And another interesting thing is that most of these teams aren't seen as evil. At first they do come off as a bit harsh sometimes, but mostly they get over their differences by the end of the game and end up becoming friends. This once again pushes that lighthearted nature of the show. And finally, let's talk about the game itself. Rugby. Now, there is a very specific reason why I decided to talk about this last, and that is because the anime does the same. There is no specific educational episode to teach you how rugby is played. We just kind of get thrown in along with the rest of the characters. They very intentionally make the game itself the last priority. This is because the show is about the characters, their relationships with each other, and how they evolve as people and teammates. Only then, after that, does the show actually talk about rugby. I think this strategy is ideal, and it keeps the show interesting. When the show talks about certain techniques or strategies, they never go overly specific with the details. They keep the strategies broad enough to make sure that people who have no clue how to play rugby actually understand what they're talking about. Therefore, you never lose interest in the show because you continue to learn new things about the sport itself through the gameplay while never actually having to sit through a 10 to 15 minute tutorial breaking down the sport for you. Overall, I could not recommend this anime enough to you guys. It definitely seemed to float under most people's radars, but I think it deserves better than that. Let me know if you guys have actually watched this anime yet, and if so, what you think of it. If you guys like this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. I make 2 anime-related videos a week. As usual, make sure you guys share, like, comment, and subscribe. This is Man Matt. Make sure you guys say, man, go watch that goddamn anime!